Welcome, welcome everyone to the Best Damn Podcast. I am your host, John Keene. As always, I would like to thank you guys for joining me. Ask that you please add, follow, and check us out Facebook, Instagram, Best Damn Podcast, Twitter, The Real Best Damn, and wherever you catch us from. Make sure to hit the like and give us a thumbs up. Leave a comment, let me know what you think, and share this link. It helps new people to find me, and make sure to subscribe and click the bell. That way you guys get all the notifications. And if you could, if you're in the chat, let me know if the audio is good, the video is good. We're going to go ahead and get right to this one. Share the screen here. Today is going to be a good one, by the way. We're going to be talking about, and I got my glasses on, so it's been a while. It's been a while. Today we're going to be talking about dark enlightenment. Um, Many of you guys probably are already familiar with the dark enlightenment, and this is basically the theory that Elon Musk subscribes to. A lot of people say Trump does as well. Peter Thiel, J.D. Vance, and this is kind of like headed by Curtis Yarvin. And when you think about it, you know. Especially, Elon Musk basically playing daddy to the nation, and controlling everything. It's like he owns us, right? And he's like doing it from the top down and basically doing whatever he wants with us. And you look at what our system is supposed to be, with a constitutional government, a democratic republic. And then when you see the ideology here, when it comes to the dark enlightenment, you're going to see this is a technocracy. This is where corporations and big tech oligarchs actually take over. And it's all because, no matter what ideology, no matter what political belief, they all believe that the useless eaters, the masses, are not capable of governing themselves. So please let me know if you guys can hear me and see me, if everything sounds good. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into this. And, I put the beginning of the end because that's exactly what this is, right? Think about the books, the novels from Ingersoll Lockwood talking about the last president, this this futuristic scenario of the socialist and the anarchist, and they kind of have this battle, and it's like it's headed by Trump here. And it's like we're living this out now, whether it's the Orwellian dystopian type of future, 1984, with all of the newspeak and the police state and the surveillance state. I mean, um, Noval Harari, he's spoken many times saying that not only, do they know what you're watching, they know how you feel and what you're thinking as you're watching it. So it's just like 1984, but you can also mix in a little bit of Aldous Huxley and the Brave New World, because we have like, genetic modification, CRISPR technology, and all this, and we're being altered um, scientifically through science. And it's like basically those are the priests of this, religion through this government. We're going to look at, satanic cults and all types of shit. I've sprinkled all types of stuff throughout tonight, and it should be pretty good. It should be pretty interesting. But I wanted to do something different, and I wanted to really get into some of the ideologies that, the people that are pulling the strings, that are, controlling all this shit, actually believe. Because, if you've noticed, they're not taking their time when they're fucking all of us, right? They're not using Vaseline, none of that, right? They just went ahead and they've taken charge, and it looks to be like it's all been a plan. And I know a lot of the people that uh, consider themselves conservatives and Republicans and on the right, they think that Trump is the good guy. He's the savior. He's here to free all of us, from the shadow government. And Elon Musk is an awesome dude too. And I'm not saying, that they're worse than what the other possibilities were, right? Joe Biden is trash, Kamala Harris is trash, right? And nobody wants the crazy liberal agenda either, right? Because it's so insane. Um, you know, but I feel like there is this type of coup going on, and it kind of started back in 2016 through the military, and it's kind of matured to and evolved to where we are today, to where now we have all of the major tech giants. They were at Trump's inauguration. We have all of basically like the libertarians and, everybody that is the superstars, if you will, outside of the two-party paradigm or on the fringe, right? Those that are rebelling against the status quo, they're all on Team Trump, you know. And Elon Musk has got the ball and he's running whatever plays he wants, and he's doing it through Doge. And remember, Doge was actually created by Obama. They've just given it a facelift and now it's being implemented, to kind of, you know, basically take us in the direction and navigate us into the direction that they want us to go. So, we're going to go ahead and get started here first. I've got an article I want to actually show you first before we get into this. And I've got videos, articles, documents, everything. So first we'll start with, the definition of dark enlightenment. The dark enlightenment, which is also called the neo-reactionary movement, sometimes abbreviated to NRX, is an anti-democratic, anti-egalitarian, and reactionary philosophical and political movement. The term dark enlightenment is a reaction to the age of enlightenment and an apologia for the popular conception of the dark ages. The ideology generally rejects Whig historiography, the concept that history shows an inevitable progression towards greater liberty and enlightenment, culminating in liberal democracy and constitutional monarchy, in favor of a return to traditional societal constructs and forms of government, including absolute monarchism and other forms of leadership like cameralism, which I hope I'm saying that right. But think about, absolute monarchism, right? And which is a form of monarchy in which the sovereign is the sole source of political power, unconstrained by constitutions, legislatures, or other checks on their authority. And I want you to kind of think of, like the executive order that basically said, those in the federal government have to follow suit, with Trump's orders and what he's doing. So it's like he's already setting the table, setting the stage, setting the precedent for something like this. Am I saying that this is going to happen for a fact? I don't know. Nobody knows where all of this is going to end up. I can just say that it does look like there are things in place to, there are things in place that really prop Trump up in a way to where there's not a lot of challenging him. You've seen back in his first term, he was not only was he challenged, it was flat out sedition and, seditious conspiracy and traitors that were going against him and, intentionally, not following orders to create disruption and chaos and, undermine his presidency, which, is bullshit, Um, and we can say that that's what's inspired all of this now. That's why he's taking this road or appears to be taking this direction, or was this the plan the whole time? A lot of people believe that Trump is in fact controlled opposition. Matter of fact, I did make some new merch. And not only did I make Comet Ping Pong Pizza, which I'm sure those shirts will sell well, but I made the Illuminati card for Trump. Enough is enough, right? Because I feel like I'm starting to get why enough would be enough, right? Someone grabbing the wheel and just taking total control, total power. It's like the shadow government, the other elites, it's like as the system implodes, you got to think, in these bottom layers of the pyramid, which are the masses, you, me, all the people on the bottom, right? As they're no longer useful and they're no longer needed, you know, in all of this. And they implode this old system. It's kind of like every man for himself. You see them like clawing and scratching to see who can take back over the top, the capstone of the pyramid, and it's a power struggle. This is where I think you see them turn against one another, and this could be, especially with Doge and some of the things they're doing economically, this could end up, kind of resulting, I believe. It looks like they're setting up some type of financial collapse, which would eventually be the collapse of America, which could then result into world war. There could be a lot of things, this could really spiral out of control fast. Now, the history is neo reactionaries are an informal community of bloggers and political theorists who have been active since the 2000s. Steve Saylor is a contemporary forerunner of the ideology, which also draws influence from philosophers such as Thomas Carlyle and Julius Evola. In 2007 and 2008, software engineer Curtis Yarvin, writing under the pen name Mencius Moldbug, articulated what would develop into dark Enlightenment thinking. Yarvin's theories were elaborated and expanded by philosopher Nick Land, and we have the text by Nick Land, which we're going to be looking at, who first coined the term dark Enlightenment in his essay of the same name. By mid 2017, NRX had moved to forums such as the Social Matter Online Forum, the Hestia Society, and Thermidor Magazine. In 2021, Yarvin appeared on Fox News, Tucker Carlson Today, where he discussed the United States' withdrawal from Afghanistan and his concept of the cathedral, which he claims to be the current aggregation of political power and influential institutions that is controlling the country. Several prominent Silicon Valley investors and Republican politicians have expressed their influence from the philosophy, with venture capitalist Peter Thiel describing Yarvin as, quote, his most important connection. Political strategist Steve Bannon has read and admired his work. And there have been allegations that he has communicated with Yarvin, which Yarvin has denied. And U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has cited Yarvin as an influence. Michael Anton, the State Department Director of Policy Planning during Trump's second presidency, has also discussed Yarvin's ideas. In January 2025, Yarvin attended a Trump inaugural gala in Washington. Politico reported he was, quote, an informal guest of honor due to his outsized influence over the Trumpian right. The beliefs central to Nick Land's ideas is a belief of freedom's incompatibility with democracy, having stated, democracy tends to fascism. Land drew inspiration from libertarians such as Peter Thiel, particularly Thiel's claim that I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible. In his essay, The Dark Enlightenment has been described by journalists and commentators as alt-right and neo-fascist. A 2016 article in New York Magazine notes that the neo reaction has a number of different strains, but perhaps the most important is a form of post libertarian futurism that, realizing the libertarians aren't likely to win any elections, argues against democracy in favor of authoritarian forms of government. Authoritarian. That sounds like we're good. And make sure you guys hit the like, give this a thumbs up if you're in the chat. Andy Beckett stated that the NRX supporters believe in the replacement of modern nation states, democracy, and government bureaucracies by authoritarian city states, which on neo reaction blogs sound as much like idealized medieval kingdoms as they do modern enclaves such as Singapore. The modern solution devised by Yarvin in a formalist manifesto advocates for a form of neo-cameralism in which small authoritarian government corps, GovCorps, coexist and compete with each other, an idea anticipated by Hans Hermann Hoppe. He claims freedom under the system would be guaranteed by the ability to vote with your feet, whereby residents could leave for another GovCorps if they felt it would provide a higher quality of life, thus forcing competition. Nick Land reiterates this with the political idea no voice, free exit, taken from Albert Hirschman's ideas of voice being democratic and exit being departure to another society. And you know what? I'm sorry, I do not agree with that at all because we've seen um, this happen already, right? Like just within the world and world governance, in the international community, not to mention how states within our, the contiguous United States, how they act as well. Like one state passes one thing, all the states act in accordance, right? They're all in uniform. Same thing with a lot of the nations, right? They create these alliances, and I doubt it would be any different, in these like returning to this monarchy of corporations and um, to avoid fascism is what they're saying, and if you don't like it, well, you can leave. Well, what if every single regime is just totalitarian, if there's just nothing but poverty, and that's what I actually see something like that happening, um, these monarchs, acting as if it would be benevolent rulership. But when have we seen, any of these people from Silicon Valley show us that they're operating in pure benevolence? Never. Anna Teixeira Pinto describes a political, oh, I missed it. Quote, if GovCorp doesn't deliver acceptable value for its taxes, sovereign rent, which they could raise through the fucking roof. I mean, they could break you just by the rent, right, to live there. Citizens can notify its customer service function and, if necessary, take their customs elsewhere. GovCorp would concentrate upon running an efficient, attractive, vital, clean, and secure country of a kind that is able to draw customers. Anna Teixeira Pinto describes the political ideology of the GovCorp model as a form of classical libertarianism. They do not want to limit the power of the state, they want to privatize it. Exactly. According to criminal, and you know what was it during COVID and shit like that when Trump was declaring the national emergencies and using defense authorization acts, right? Threatening to pound down on the different corporations for hoarding. We've seen a lot of things become federalized or placed under the thumb of the federal government. Now, imagine after everything's kind of centralized under federal government, as we've seen this kind of being the common theme here. Um, and then they go into a system, like this where, all the power already, lies on one spot. And then you have this kind of totalitarianism by a new monarch, right? That's rescuing us from democracy because, we would much rather, live in one of your corporatocracy, technocracies where you're charging us rent. And just to exist in that space, and we're your customer, so you don't really have the you don't have to protect us, you don't have to give us rights or anything, right? There's no constitutions or anything like that to actually protect the people living there. But if we don't like it, we can go elsewhere to another place that's operating the same fucking underhanded way. Like, it makes no sense actually. Now, Yarbin has described himself as a royalist, monarchist, and a Jacobite. He and Land refer to the contemporary liberal society which they oppose as the cathedral in association with the Puritan Church, and its goals of egalitarianism and democracy as the synopsis. Neo-reactionaries endorse race realism, referring to it as human biodiversity. Land coined the term hyper-racism to refer to his views on race. He believes that socioeconomic status is a strong proxy for IQ rather than race specifically, though he acknowledges a correlation between race and socioeconomic status, and that meritocracy, particularly space colonization, will function as a highly selective genetic filter that propagates mostly, but not strictly, whites and Asians. Yarvin has stated, although I am not a white nationalist, I am not exactly allergic to the stuff, and endorsed arguments for Black racial inferiority and claimed they are being suppressed by members of the cathedral, such as Ivy League schools, the New York Times, and Hollywood. Neo reaction also functions as a mean to achieve accelerationism, the use of capitalism and technology to destabilize existing systems and create radical change. Land views democratic and egalitarian policies as only slowing down acceleration and techno-capital singularity. And techno-capital singularity or yeah, so this is same thing as singularity. Stating beside the speed machine or industrial capitalism, there is an ever more perfectly weighted decelerator. Comically, the fabrication of this braking mechanism is proclaimed as progress. It is the great work of the left. Vox characterized such views as having come from the land living in China's techno-authoritarian political system, and his admiration for Deng Xiaoping and Singapore's Lee Kuan Yew, with Land calling Lee an autocratic enabler of freedom, and Yarvin also praising Lee. Land has advocated for accelerationists to support the neo-reactionary movement, though many have distanced themselves from him in response to his view on race. So there you have it right there. And we're going to actually get into some of this. I've got a few articles here as well. Where's it at? Which one do I got? I wanted to show you guys here. I think it's right here. The Dark Enlightenment. The tech oligarch ideology driving Doge's destruction. President Donald Trump and Elon Musk aren't just tearing down institutions, they're laying the groundwork for an experimental new kind of authoritarian rule. And you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. When I seen, the head of Google and fucking Bezos and Zuckerberg, and Musk, and it's like all of them, right? At the inauguration, it's like I got a fucked up feeling about it. I'm like, damn, why does he have, all of these, titans, oligarchs of Silicon Valley? And when he came in, right off the from the kickoff, right? He starts switching things up, and let's keep it real. A lot of the stuff that he did, especially in the first week or so, looked absolutely fucking amazing. I mean, it was a breath of fresh air as opposed to what we had experienced with Biden, for sure, right? So the last 4 years, we were getting our asses handed to us by the government. So when he comes in protecting, free speech and releasing the JFK and MLK and RFK files, like all of this shit, right? He's just one thing after another, um, and it appeared to be in service of the people, the masses. But what it actually appears now that he did was deconstruct a lot of the things that were hindering him or safeguards that prevented him from moving forward with his agenda now and to allow him to implode the old system, you know? And then when we seen Musk, he's been such a huge part of all of this, and with Doge, and think about it, with US aid and all of that, like the takedowns that they've done, there's still no arrest on the Epstein shit, even though they have released some of the files, right? Um, but it's like a lot of people had questions. This is the guy who wants to put fucking, a chip in your head, you know? And a lot of people will even remember, I can pull up the video. Musk's babysitter saying that, yeah, when he was a kid, um, she asked, Is he the Antichrist?" And she was told no, that he wasn't the Antichrist, but he would bring out the mark of the beast, and the Antichrist would take the stage, and follow. And what we've kind of seen is something, that looks like very similar to what she was told, whether she's full of shit or crazy or whatever or not. Um, this neural lace, does appear to be, exactly what we've always kind of suspected the mark of the beast would be, right? A chip in your fucking head, right? And this, um, it's always being presented as something to help people, right? Like, oh well, this is for paraplegics and and people with having seizures, and so it's like uh, we're not scared of the rollout, which now they're placing this in humans, and successfully, might I add. Um, but what it could lead to, what it could lead to is something on an entirely different level, right? Like especially when you see, and think about Trump with Operation Warp Speed, you know, in cahoots with DOD and DARPA, and um, giving immunity to all of those, jab companies. A lot of people forget that he began the reset. He kicked it off, he did. Whether and he gave you a stimulus to shut your mouth, basically, to pay you to buy your silence. And ever since this agenda has began, which, Klaus Schwab, he wrote the book COVID-19, The Great Reset. This reset is happening, and we are leaving the way things used to be, of the, Constitution, a democratic republic, right? All of that. We're now moving into this technocracy where, it's all AI, and, AI is now able to, write prescriptions. AI is now in charge of the nuclear arsenal, and it continues, right? It continues to increase, you know, audio and video. You lost your fur, baby. Can you guys hear me good? See something that says audio and video. Can you guys hear me good and see me good? Just let me know. Um, Thank you. Thank you. Uh, Benita Miller says, "Hey, John, spare me a thought and say a prayer for me. I lost my fur baby. Oh, I'm heartbroken. So lost without him. That's so sad. Hey, I am really, really sorry to hear that. I am really sorry to hear that. I know a few people that's lost, fur babies recently. But, I apologize. I don't know why this video ain't getting out there. So that's why I'm asking. Is like something wrong with it? Make sure you guys hit the thumbs up. Hopefully, we get some more people in the chat. I don't know what the hell's up with that. I swear it's weird. YouTube is just trash anymore. So, We'll go ahead and jump into this. The dark enlightenment, the tech oligarch ideology driving Doge's destruction. President Donald Trump and Elon Musk aren't just tearing down institutions; they're laying the groundwork for an experimental new kind of authoritarian rule. The future of American democracy isn't being dismantled by accident. It's being systemically replaced to prepare the way for something entirely new. A radical ideology known as the Dark Enlightenment is fueling a billionaire led movement to gut our government, erase democratic norms, and install a technocratic elite in their place. President Donald Trump and Elon Musk aren't just tearing down institutions, they're laying the groundwork for the experimental new kind of authoritarian rule. The audacious experiment Musk has embarked on, which Trump probably doesn't even understand, I'm sure he does actually, involves the fundamental transformation of America from a nation ruled by its own people into one where decisions are made by a very specific elite group of self selected genius. And why they put this is bullshit. White male technocrats. I hate when they add that shit. That's not, it's not about white males, it's just technocrats. But what do you expect from the fucking fake news media? Americans are baffled by the brutal, relentless attack on the institutions of America that they've launched. And see, and this is the crazy part, and I just want to point this out. What's fucking wild is on one side, you have the left trying to take us into this like Marxist, socialist, communist bullshit, right? Which is crazy enough, you know? And we're in an upside down world with these fucktards, and them telling us, what we can and can't say or think and everything, right? With the political correctness and the censorship, and it's just insanity. So to escape that insanity, everybody's gravitated towards the right, you know, thinking that this would take power away from the government. And they were right? They were right. It has. But it's only to implode the old system. That way we can bring in a technocracy where, these tech oligarchs rule over us and we have no constitution and we have no democracy at all. So either way, they're trying to fuck your eyes out. It doesn't matter what side it's on. This is why I say there are two wings to the same bird. This is why I say Trump is controlled opposition. This is why I say, your vote don't fucking matter. They're going to do what they're going to do. Now, why would they destroy our reputation around the world by shutting down US aid? Are you fucking kidding me? Our reputation around the world by shutting down USAID, it was money laundering. They were money laundering. That's why they were bankrupting the government and our system and ripping off all of the taxpayers. That's why. And it was flat out fucking criminal. They had taxpayers paying to have psyops ran on them, psychological warfare ran on them, and fucking paying for transgender chickens and shit. It was weird, wild shit, and they fucked us over bad, and they were doing it to funnel out all of the wealth of the United States into their fucking billionaire pockets. That's why. What's wrong with the federal government helping poor school districts? Oh my fucking God. Or giving, this is nonsense, guys. I'm sorry. Or helping poor school districts or giving college students Pell Grants. Why gut billions in scientific research that's kept America at the forefront of the world and saved literally hundreds of millions of lives? Which I'm very tempted right now to pull up some of that weird, fucking useless research, and I'm very tempted right now to pull up the the poor people that they were helping. It's bullshit. Um, wow. Paul Krugman recommends a psychiatrist weigh in. Duh, duh, duh. How exactly this plays out is destruction under the title is destruction the point. Some speculate that Musk and Trump are both tight with Putin and they're destroying our government at his direction, helping achieve the goal he's had since his KGB days to destroy America from within, which has been the goal of fucking Russia and the Soviet Union and all that shit always, by the way, right? Because we keep trying to destroy them, especially through our proxy wars and all kinds of shit, which I'll show some in a second. Others think it's just a way of crippling government programs like Social Security, Medicaid, the post office, so they can now be profitably taken over by the private industry. And it is. They are trying to wax these things. They're trying to cripple, the system to hijack it. But the other side was doing the same thing by selling it out to China and all of this. Now we're just, and Trump's a Zionist shill. He's just doing it a different way. Democratic politicians tell us Musk and Trump are just trying to cut government spending to pay for the $4 trillion in tax cuts for billionaires that House Speaker Mike Johnson will be introducing in the House in the next few weeks. They're all wrong. The simple answer is that these people intend to replace the 240 plus year American experiment with a brand new governance experiment of their own, one that was largely developed in computer rooms around San Francisco. And why San Francisco? Uh, that's where Bohemian Grove is there and all that shit, right? Where all the Lemites and shit hang out. And there's a reason it's the capital of homosexuals and stuff. So there's an actual ideology behind all of this, and it isn't the old fashioned Ayn Rand libertarianism that was such a rage during the Reagan era. This is hot new experimental ideology, enthusiastically embraced by Silicon Valley billionaires and their tech bros, dismantling our government. It's called the Dark Enlightenment or the Neo Reactionary Movement, and it's not entirely new. They believe they have proof that it works, which can be found way over on the other side of the planet. I've been there, in fact, and it does seem to be working just fine if you don't care about freedom. Back in 94, I published a book proposing that ADHD wasn't a brain disease. Who gives a fuck? One of the countries I visited during the book tour was Singapore. A parents group had reached out to my publisher and set up the opportunity. I gave the speech, laid out the series of suggestions, and during the Q&A that followed, one of the parents asked how to best convince schools to adopt some of my ideas. I suggest they should become politically active. A standard answer in most every other country. Little did I realize the significance of that phrase. When I got back to my hotel, an internationally famous five-star tower with a beautiful atrium, my room had been torn apart. The mattress and box springs were on the floor as there were contents of my suitcase. Every drawer was pulled open. My toiletries kit was all over the bathroom. I called hotel security to report what I thought was a break-in or a robbery, although I couldn't immediately see that anything was missing. The head of security showed up to my room in 5 minutes. They looked around with neither shock or alarm. The manager explained with a hint, but only a hint, of apology in his voice. The police were here. They did this, as I recall. He nodded, said, presumably. Why? I demanded. Both men shrugged. The head of security asked me if I engaged in anything illegal while in Singapore, particularly bringing drugs into the country, and I indignantly denied even the possibility. They shrugged their shoulders again and offered to send a maid back to help put the room together. They explained in a whisper that I should never have mentioned politics in my speech. It's not allowed here. So basically, this is this is what's going to happen here to us, right? According to the philosopher king of Dark Enlightenment movement, the guy who woke up J.D. Vance, and the billionaires who support him, Singapore is their explicit model for America's future. Kaiser Scatzline writes about Curtis Yarvin and the other Dark Enlightenment thinkers who have inspired Musk, Thiel, Vance, And for a new breed of right wing thinkers, politicians, and activists, LKY's approach to government is appealing. Curtis Yarvin, Silicon Valley's resident neo monarchist, compares LKY to FDR. Both good examples, he says, of a unilateral leader. And Nick Land, an accelerationist philosopher, calls LKY an autocratic enabler of freedom. To them, LKY is the paradigm of a liberal ruler who created a paradise for his subjects, a freedom without rights and prosperity without disorder. Which I've got some videos here. Let's go ahead and start playing some of these actually.
Diving into the intriguing connections between J.D. Vance, Curtis Yarvin, and Peter Thiel. Buckle up because this is a wild ride through the realms of politics and radical ideas. First up, let's talk about J.D. Vance, Curtis Yarvin, and the Dark Enlightenment. J.D. Vance, candidate for Vice President of the United States, author of Hillbilly Elegy and a U.S. Senator, is influenced by Curtis Yarvin, a software developer better known by his pseudonym Mencius Moldbug. Yarvin is a self-described reactionary who's proposed some pretty controversial ideas about reorganizing society. Both Vance and Yarvin are linked to big tech billionaire Peter Thiel, who's been a major influence on Vance's political journey. Now let's delve into Yarvin's controversial ideas. Yarvin is known for his provocative theories. One of his most infamous suggestions involved converting the underclass into biodiesel to fuel public transportation, a comment he later claimed was a joke. Despite the shock value, Yarvin's main point was to
converting the underclass into biodiesel to fuel transportation. What in the book?
highlight societal problems and propose what he calls a humane alternative to genocide. Additionally, Yarvin advocates for monarchy. He believes a single ruler can govern more efficiently and with greater accountability than a democracy, which he argues is often corrupted by interest groups and the quest for votes. Yarvin's ideas are certainly divisive, sparking significant debates. So, what do you think about the concept of monarchy in modern times? Let me know in the comments. Lastly, let's connect the dots with Peter Thiel. Thiel, co-founder of PayPal and a tech billionaire, has played a significant role in both Vance's and Yarvin's lives.
With Musk.
Thiel hired Vance at his investment firm in 2017 and later donated $15 million to Vance's 2022 Senate campaign. This support was crucial in helping Vance secure a Senate seat. Thiel's influence on Vance extends beyond finances. His ideas and connections have deeply shaped Vance's political views and strategies. Thiel has also supported Yarvin, investing in his software startup Tlon in 2013. Yarvin's radical ideas about monarchy and societal reordering have found an audience in Thiel, and by extension in Vance. In conclusion, Thiel's financial backing and Yarvin's intellectual influence have significantly shaped J.D. Vance's political journey and rise within the Republican Party. It's a fascinating web of connections that highlight the intersections of money, power, and radical ideas in modern politics. Thanks for tuning in. If you found this breakdown interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Now that we've explored the intriguing connections between J.D. Vance, Curtis Yarvin, and the Dark Enlightenment, let's delve deeper into the role of Peter Thiel in this fascinating web. Thiel, a co-founder of PayPal and a Silicon Valley titan, is not just a financier but a thinker whose ideas have a profound impact on modern politics. Thiel's journey from a tech entrepreneur to a political influencer is a story worth examining. After making a fortune with PayPal and early investments in companies like Facebook, Thiel turned his attention to politics and philosophy. He's known for his libertarian views and his skepticism of democracy, which he believes is inherently flawed and inefficient. This skepticism aligns closely with Yarvin's ideas, making Thiel a natural ally for the controversial thinker. In 2016, Thiel made headlines by becoming one of the few Silicon Valley elites to publicly support Donald Trump's presidential campaign. This move was seen as a bold statement, showcasing Thiel's willingness to break from the liberal consensus of the tech industry. His support didn't stop there. Thiel has continued to back candidates who share his vision of a radically different political landscape, including J.D. Vance. Thiel's financial support for Vance has been substantial, but his influence goes beyond money. Thiel has introduced Vance to a network of like-minded individuals, providing him with both intellectual and strategic resources. This support has been crucial in shaping Vance's political strategies and his rise within the Republican Party. But why does Thiel support these controversial and often divisive figures? The answer lies in his vision for the future. Thiel believes that technological innovation and radical political change are necessary to address the challenges of the 21st century. He sees figures like Vance and Yarvin as catalysts for this change, individuals who are willing to question the status quo and propose bold, if sometimes unsettling, solutions. Thiel's influence is a testament to the power of ideas and money in shaping political landscapes. His support has helped elevate fringe thinkers like Yarvin and ambitious politicians like Vance, bringing their ideas into the mainstream. This intersection of technology, philosophy, and politics is reshaping the contours of American political discourse. As we continue to witness the unfolding impact of Thiel's influence, it's essential to consider the broader implications. How will these radical ideas shape the future of politics? Will Thiel's vision lead to meaningful change, or will it further polarize an already divided society? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Thiel's influence is a force for good?
Guys, I'm really interested to hear some of your thoughts on this as well. So, please put it in the chat. I'll go back and forth, try to check the chat, and leave it in the comments section if you guys see this on the flip side. I would first like to know, the first question is, one, what do you think of this dark enlightenment and this neo-reactionary movement? Do you believe there's any validity to it whatsoever? Is this better than, the democratic republic system that we already have, right? And living, under the Constitution. I would like to know that. And second, I would like to know, uh, do you believe if there is a replacement system, which system would you choose? You don't get to pick other one. Just out of these two, the socialist, kind of Marxist communist ideology of the extreme left, or this neo-reactionary, dark enlightenment of the right. Which one of those two do you believe would be the lesser of two evils, should we say? So we're going to go ahead and move forward here. That's fucking crazy, man. It is crazy. Let's go ahead and jump into some documents here. Well, hold on. Got something else here. Yeah, here we go. We was talking about Russia, and this is really what's crazy about all of this, because we had the KGB defector Yuri Bezmenov, right, warning America, I believe, back in '86 or something like that, exactly how ideological subversion would be the death of us and collapse this country. So I've got like a 6-minute clip here to kind of show some of that before we kind of move forward, And this is showing you that, and this is warning against the dangers of the left, right? The socialist, communist side. So
in 1939 in a suburb of Moscow. He was the son of a high-ranking Soviet Army officer. He was educated in the elite schools inside the Soviet Union and became an expert in Indian culture and Indian languages. He had an outstanding career with Novosti, which was and still is, I should say, the press arm or the press agency of the Soviet Union. It turns out that this is also a front for the KGB. He escaped to the West in 1970 after becoming totally disgusted with the Soviet system, and he did this at great risk to his life. He certainly is one of the world's outstanding experts on the subject of Soviet propaganda and disinformation and active measures. Well, you spoke several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets use the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare, What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great
Think about that.
brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in four basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least three generations of American
The
students
soft head.
without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years. Actually, it's overfulfilled because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it
Crazy.
is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his balls, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization. The next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, it doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation. It's what matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems. And you can see it quite clearly that in some areas, in such sensitive areas as defense and economy, the influence of Marxist-Leninist ideas in the United States is absolutely fantastic. I could never believe it 14 years ago when I landed in this part of the world that the process will go that fast. The next stage, of course, is crisis. It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis. You can see it in Central America now. And after crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called the period of normalization. It may last indefinitely.
The new
Normalization
normal.
is a cynical expression borrowed from Soviet propaganda. When the Soviet tanks moved into Czechoslovakia in '68, Comrade Brezhnev said, "Now the situation in brotherly Czechoslovakia is normalized." This is what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to bring the country to crisis, to promise people all kind of goodies and the paradise on earth, to destabilize your economy, to eliminate the principle of free market competition, and to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C., with benevolent dictators like Walter Mondale, who will promise lots of things, never mind whether the promises are fulfillable or not. Your leftists in United States.
And think about it. It's what's crazy is I know it seems like it's only speaking about the left, and I do believe the left is they're very, very guilty of this. They are definitely trying to undermine our constitutional republic and bring us into this socialist, Marxist fucking bullshit that we've seen now, right? To where people can't discern the truth or reality or anything. But also, if we're looking at the dark enlightenment and this neo-reactionary shit as well, then we're starting to see the benevolent dictator side also. So
all these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defender. They are instrumental in the process of the subversion, only to destabilize the nation. When their job is completed, they are not needed anymore. They know too much. Some of them, when they get disillusioned, when they see that Marxist Leninists come to power, obviously they get offended. They think that they will come to power. That will never happen, of course. They will be lined up against the wall and shot. But they may turn into the most bitter enemies of Marxist Leninists when they come to power. And that's what happened in Nicaragua. You remember most of these former Marxist Leninists were either put to prison or one of them split, and now he's working against Sandinistas. It happened in Grenada when Maurice Bishop he was already a Marxist. He was executed by a new Marxist who was more Marxist than this Marxist. Same happened in Afghanistan when first the
Yeah. So basically, I hope you get the moral of the fucking story. So all these groups and um, people that are helping these agendas along, right? Especially these grassroots movements that are helping these agendas along and pushing them further and further. Um, they think they're going to get a slice of the pie. They think they're on the inside, and they're just not, right? He's even said, like, those will be the first people that are lined up and unalived, right? Because uh, these governments don't want dissenters. They don't want people that cause disruption and undermine stability. They don't want that existing in their new utopia, right? When it's created. So, people are foolish if they think like that they're going to um, first off, if you think that you're going to be prosperous in this new system, let alone if you think that you're going to come out on top and be part of the power system. Our first problem is ego, and I don't want any form of control over mankind. Well, I mean, you know what? I agree with you, but you know what? They are definitely going to always try to maintain some form of control over us. That's just the way they operate. Um, right, wrong, or in between, it doesn't matter. They're going to continue to push things the way that they have in the direction they have. And I do see that, our old system now, our old government now has kind of become outdated, and they are taking things to a new direction. Transhumanism is going to be here. I agree, Bradley from America. I agree. Transhumanism to me, and I've done videos on this. I did a 2-part series. The technocrats and the future cyborg slave race, part 1 and 2. It's in a playlist here on YouTube, and it's over on Facebook as well. Talking about this AI, transhumanism, and the brain hacking and all of this. It's like, to me, that is the number one threat that we are facing, worldwide, right? Like, because governments change, governments are overthrown, their wars happen. This has been something that's people die, atrocities are committed, right? It's bad news when it does take place. And it's sad and it's hard. It produces hard lives for the citizens of those countries. But we can come out of the other side of that a lot of times. We can live through that a lot of times. The transhumanism and shit, that's total enslavement. You're lost forever, right? You live in Akron, Ohio. I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. Go Buckeyes. All right, let's go ahead and jump over here. And we're going to look at some of this dark enlightenment shit now. I think we're at a good place for that. Okay. This is by Nick Land. So this is The Dark Enlightenment by Nick Land. And I will try to, for anything I have links or whatever to, I will try to post those in the chat for you guys. So part 1, neo-reactionaries head for the exit. Enlightenment is not only a state, but an event and a process as a designation for a historical episode concentrated in Northern Europe during the 18th century. It is a leading candidate for the true name of modernity, capturing its origin and essence. Renaissance and Industrial Revolution are others, and it makes me think of Alex Jones, how he always calls this like, the modern day Renaissance and shit. Just saying, just came to my mind there. Um, between Enlightenment and progressive Enlightenment, there is only an elusive difference because illumination takes time and feeds on itself. Because Enlightenment is self confirming, its revelations self evident. And because a retrograde or reactionary dark Enlightenment amounts almost to intrinsic contradiction. To become enlightened in this historical sense is to recognize and then to pursue a guiding light. There were ages of darkness, and then enlightenment came. Clearly, advance has demonstrated itself, offering not only improvement but also a model. Furthermore, unlike a Renaissance, there is no need for an enlightenment to recall what was lost or to emphasize the attractions of return. The elementary acknowledgement of enlightenment is already Whig history in miniature. One certain enlightened truth has been found self evident. There can be no turning back, and conservatism is preemptively condemned, predestined to paradox. F.A. Hayek, who refused to describe himself as a conservative, famously settled instead upon the term old Whig, which, like classic liberal, or the still more melancholy remnant, accepts that progress isn't what it used to be. What could an old Whig be if not a reactionary progressive? And what on earth is that? Of course, plenty of people already think they know what reactionary modernism looks like, and amidst the current collapse back in the 30s, their concerns are only likely to grow. Basically, it's what the F word is for. It's at least in progressive usage. A flight from democracy under these circumstances conforms so perfectly to expectations that it eludes specific recognition, appearing merely as atavism or confirmation of dire repetition. Still, something is happening, and it is, at least in part, something else. One milestone was the 2009 discussion hosted at Cato Unbound among libertarian thinkers, including Patrick Friedman and Peter Thiel, in which disillusionment with the direction of possibilities of democratic politics was expressed with unusual forthrightness. Thiel summarized the trend bluntly. I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible. In August 2011, Michael Lind posted a Democratic repost at Salon, digging up some impressively malodorous dirt and concluding, the dread of democracy by libertarians and classic liberals is justified. Libertarianism really is incompatible with democracy. Most libertarians have made it clear which of the two they prefer. The only question that remains to be settled is why anyone should pay attention to libertarians. Lind and the neo-reactionaries seem to be in broad agreement that democracy is not only or even a system, but rather a vector with an unmistakable direction. Democracy and progressive democracy are synonymous and indistinguishable from the expansion of the state. Whilst extreme right-wing governments have, on rare occasions, momentarily arrested this process, its reversal lies beyond the bounds of democratic possibility. Since winning elections is overwhelmingly a matter of vote buying, society's informational organs, education, and media are no more resistant to bribery than the electorate. A thrifty politician is simply an incompetent politician, and the democratic variant of Darwinism quickly eliminates such misfits from the gene pool. This is a reality that the left applauds. The establishment, right, grumpily accepts. and the libertarian right has ineffectively railed against. Increasingly, however, libertarians have ceased to care whether anyone is paying them attention. They have been looking for something else entirely, an exit. It is a structural inevitability that the libertarian voice is drowned out in democracy. And according to Lind, it should be. Ever more libertarians are likely to agree. Voice is democracy itself, and its historically dominant Russiaistic strain. It models the state as a representation of popular will, and making oneself heard means more politics. If voting as the mass self-expression of politically empowered peoples is a nightmare engulfing the world, adding to the hubbub doesn't help. Even more than equality versus liberty, voice versus exit is the rising alternative, and libertarians are opting for a voiceless flight. Patri Friedman remarks, quote, "We think that free exit is so important that we've called it the only universal human right. For the hardcore neo-reactionaries, democracy is not merely doomed, it is doom itself. Fleeing it approaches an ultimate imperative. The subterranean current that propels such anti-politics as recognizably Hobbesian, a coherent dark enlightenment devoid from its beginnings of any Rousseauistic enthusiasm for popular expression, predisposed in any case to perceive the politically awakened masses as a howling, irrational mob. It conceived the dynamics of democratization as fundamentally degenerative, systemically consolidating and exacerbating private vices, resentments, and deficiencies until they reach the level of collective criminality and comprehensive social corruption. The democratic politician and the electorate are bound together by a circuit of reciprocal incitement, in which each side drives the other to ever more shameless extremities of hooting, prancing cannibalism until the only alternative to shouting is being eaten. Where the progressive enlightenment sees political ideas, the dark enlightenment sees appetite. It accepts that governments are made out of people and that they will eat well, setting its expectations as low as reasonably possible. It seeks only to spare civilization from frenzied, ruinous, gluttonous debauch. From Thomas Hobbes to Hans Hermann Hoppe and beyond, it asks, how can the sovereign power be prevented, or at least dissuaded, from devouring society? It consistently finds democratic solutions to this problem risible at best. Hoppe advocates an anarcho-capitalist private law society between monarchy and democracy. He does not hesitate, and his argument is strictly Hobbesian. As a hereditary monopolist, a king regards a territory as the people under his rule, as his personal property, and engages in the monopolistic exploitation of this property. Under democracy, monopoly and monopolistic exploitation do not disappear. Rather, what happens is this: instead of a king and a nobility who regard the country as their private property, a temporary and interchangeable caretaker is put in monopolistic charge of the country. The caretaker does not own the country, but as long as he is in office, he's permitted to use it to his and his proteges' advantage. He owns its current usufruct, but not its capital stock. This does not eliminate exploitation. To the contrary, it makes exploitation less calculating and carried out with little or no regard to capital stock. Exploitation becomes a short-sighted, and capital consumption will be systematically promoted. Political agents invested with transient authority by multi-party democratic systems have an overwhelming and demonstrably irresistible incentive to plunder society with the greatest possible rapidity and comprehensiveness. Anything they neglect to steal or leave on the table is likely to be inherited by political successors who are not only unconnected but actually opposed, and who can therefore be expected to utilize all available resources to the detriment of their foes. Whatever is left behind becomes a weapon in your enemy's hand. Best, then, to destroy what cannot be stolen. From the perspective of a Democratic politician, any type of social good that is neither directly appropriable nor attributable to their own partisan policy is sheer waste and counts for nothing. Whilst even the most grievous social misfortune, so long as it can be assigned to a prior administration or postponed until a subsequent one, figures in rational calculations as an obvious blessing. The long range techno economic improvements and associated accumulation of cultural capital that constituted social progress in its old Whig sense are in nobody's political interest. Once democracy flourishes, they face the immediate threat of extinction. Civilization as a process is indistinguishable from diminishing time preference or declining concern for the present in comparison to the future. Democracy, which both in theory and evident historical fact accentuates time preference to the point of convulsive feeding frenzy, and thus as close to a precise negation of civilization as anything could be, short of instantaneous social collapse into murderous barbarism or zombie apocalypse, which it eventually leads to. As the democratic virus burns through society, painstakingly accumulated habits and attitudes of forward thinking, prudential, human, and industrial investment are replaced by a sterile, orgiastic consumerism, financial incontinence, and a reality television political circus. Tomorrow might belong to the other team, so it's best to eat it all now. Winston Churchill, who remarked in neo reactionary style, the best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter, is better known for suggesting that democracy is the worst form of government except all the others that have been tried, whilst never exactly conceding that, okay, democracy sucks. In fact, it really sucks. But what's the alternative? The implication is obvious. The general tenor of this sensibility is attractive to modern conservatives because it resonates with their wry, disillusioned acceptance of relentless civilizational deterioration and with the associated intellectual apprehension of capitalism as an unappetizing but uneliminable default social arrangement which remains after all catastrophic or merely impractical alternatives have been discarded. The market economy, on this understanding, is no more than a spontaneous survival strategy that stitches itself together amidst the ruins of a politically devastated world. Things will probably just get worse forever. So it goes. So, what is the alternative? There's certainly no point trawling through the 30s for one. Can you imagine a 21st century post democratic society, one that saw itself as recovering from democracy, much as Eastern Europe sees itself as recovering from communism? As supreme Sith Lord of the neo reactionaries, Mencius Moldbug? Well, I suppose that makes one of us. Moldbug's formative influences are Austro libertarian, but that's all over, as he explains. Libertarians cannot present a realistic picture of a world in which their battle gets won and stays won. They wind up looking for ways to push a world in which the state's natural downhill path is to grow back up the hill. This prospect is Scythian, and it's understandable why it attracts so few supporters. His awakening into neo reaction comes with the Hobbesian recognition that sovereignty cannot be eliminated, caged, or controlled. Anarcho capitalist utopias can never condense out of science fiction. Divided powers flow back together like a shattered Terminator. And constitutions have exactly as much real authority as a sovereign interpretive power allows them to have. The state isn't going anywhere because those who run it, it's worth far too much to give up. and the concentrated instantiation of sovereignty in society, nobody can make it do anything. If the state cannot be eliminated, Moldbug argues, at least it can be cured of democracy or systemic and degenerative bad government. And the way to do that is to formalize it. This is an approach he calls neo-cameralism. The neo-cameralist, a state is a business which owns a country. A state should be managed like any other large business by dividing logical ownership into negotiable shares, each of which yields a precise fraction of the state's profit. A well-run state is very profitable. Each share has one vote, and the shareholders elect a board which hires and fires managers. Firstly, it's essential to squash the democratic myth that a state belongs to the citizenry. The point of neo-cameralism is to buy out the real stakeholders and sovereign power, not to perpetuate sentimental lies about mass enfranchisement. Unless ownership of the state is formally transferred into the hands of actual rulers, the neo-cameral transition will simply not take place. Power will remain in the shadows, and the democratic farce will continue. So, secondly, the ruling class must be plausibly identified. It should be noted immediately. In contradistinction to Marx's principles of social analysis, that this is not the capitalist I have no idea what that word is. Logically, it cannot be. The power of the business class is already clearly formalized in monetary terms, so the identification of capital with political power is perfectly redundant. It is necessary to ask, rather, why do capitalists pay for political favors? How much these favors are potentially worth, and how the authority to grant them is distributed. This requires, with a minimum of moral irritation, that the entire social landscape of political bribery, lobbying, is exactly mapped, and the administrative, legislative, judicial, media, and academic privileges accessed by such bribes are converted into fungible shares insofar as voters are worth bribing. There is no need to entirely exclude them from this calculation, although their portion of sovereignty will be estimated with appropriate derision. The conclusion of this exercise is that the mapping of a ruling entity that is the truly dominant instance of the democratic polity. Moldbug calls it the cathedral. The formalization of political powers, thirdly, allows for the possibility of effective government. Once the universe of democratic corruption is converted into a freely transferable shareholding in GovCorp, the owners of the state can initiate rational corporate governance, beginning with the appointment of a CEO. As with any business, and isn't it crazy? Let me just cut off for a second. Isn't it crazy, too, how everybody's talking about Trump, you know, and how good he is in business, and this is why he'd be perfect to be the president and all of this, right? And it's like, oh, well, if we see things take a turn to here, right? The CEO, Trump would make a great CEO for this, new government, right? Just saying. As with any business, the interests of the state are now precisely formalized as a maximization of long-term shareholder value. There is no longer any need for residents, clients to take any interest in politics whatsoever. Wow. I'm sorry. I think this is fucking wacky as shit, man. I know this is a well thought out political scheme here, but god damn, this sounds so stupid to me, right? Like basically saying, okay, well, because democracy is really a farce and your vote don't really matter anyways, and there's so much corruption and lobbies and all of this, just go ahead and give over all the power, right? And we'll make America, it's already a corporation, but we'll make a CEO the head of this corporation, and you don't worry about politics at all, right? Just rest your peasant mind, right? And we'll take control from here. totally, absolutely unelected, without being challenged, without anything to protect you, without, it's just fucking insanity. And if you don't like it, you can freely exit if we don't kill you first, right? Or have your whole family wiped off the face of the earth first, right? Or block you from leaving or anything, because we can do whatever the fuck we want because there's no rule of law. You're just a client. You know, it's crazy as fuck. Um, the formalization of political powers, thirdly, allows for the possibility of effective government. Once a universe of democratic corruption is converted into a freely transferable shareholding in GovCorp, the owners of the state can initiate rational corporate governance, beginning with the appointment of a CEO. As with any business, the interests of the state are now precisely formalized as the maximization of long term shareholder value. There is no longer any need for residents to take any interest in politics whatsoever. In fact, to do so would be to exhibit semi-criminal proclivities. So it'd be criminal to get into politics at all. If GovCorp doesn't deliver acceptable value for its taxes, which is sovereign rent, they can notify its customer service function and, if necessary, take their customer elsewhere or fucking do anything they wanted to them. GovCorp would concentrate upon running an efficient, attractive, vital, clean, and secure country of a kind that is able to draw customers. No voice, free exit. Wow, dude, this is insane. No voice, free exit. Like, are you guys hearing this fucking shit? Although the full neo-cameralist approach has never been tried, its closest historical equivalents to this approach are the 18th century tradition of enlightened absolutism, as represented by Frederick the Great, and 21st century non democratic tradition, as seen in the lost fragments of the British Empire, such as Hong Kong, Singapore, and Dubai. These states appear to provide a very high quality of service to their citizens with no meaningful democracy at all. They have minimal crime and high levels of personal and economic freedom. They tend to be quite prosperous. They are weak only in political freedom, and political freedom is unimportant by definition when government is stable and effective. In European classic antiquity, democracy was recognized as a familiar phase of cyclical political development, fundamentally decadent in nature and preliminary to a slide into tyranny. Today, this classical understanding is thoroughly lost and replaced by a global democratic ideology, entirely lacking in critical self reflection that is asserted not as a credible social scientific thesis or even as a spontaneous popular aspiration, but rather as a religious creed of a specific, historically identifiable kind. Wow. I received tradition I call universalism, which is non-theistic Christian sect. Yeah. So we'll go into this too. It's the universalist fucking church, right? This is where all the LGBTQ and all kinds of shit is in the universalist, right? That or we can do the futurist transhumanist church. I don't know which one they would adopt, probably both. It'd probably be the two big, religions. I received tradition I call universalism, which is non-theistic Christian sect. Some other current labels for the same tradition, more or less synonymous, are progressivism, multiculturalism, liberalism, humanism, leftism, political correctness, and the like. Universalism is the dominant modern branch of Christianity on the Calvinist line, evolving from the English dissenter or Puritan tradition through the Unitarian, Transcendentalist, and progressive movements. An ancestral briar patch also includes a few sideways sprigs that are important enough to name, but whose Christian ancestry is slightly better concealed, such as Rusibian Lycism, Benthamite utilitarianism, Reformed Judaism, Comtean positivism and German idealism, Marxist scientific socialism, Sartrean existentialism, Heideggerian postmodernism, etc., etc., etc. Universalism, in my opinion, is best described as a mystery cult of power. It's as hard to imagine universalism without the state as malaria without the mosquito. The point is that this thing, whatever you care to call it, is at least 200 years old and probably more like 5. It's basically the Reformation itself. And just walking up to it and denouncing it as evil is about as likely to work as suing Shub Nigaruk in small claims court. Yeah. Well, matter of fact, I were on this. Yeah, more commoners this time. I don't know why we don't get a lot of people over here on the YouTube channel anymore. It's just weird. Honestly, it's just weird. We're gonna jump into some stuff here. I'm gonna hit you with a couple videos. This is just fucking wild. This entire, and they have us. They have us by the balls, is what they do. They have us completely by the balls. They have us by the balls. This is Lauren Loomer with Steve Bannon.
Laura Loomer joins us. Laura, certain aspects of this have one of my concerns is that people don't appreciate when we say America first, we're talking about the nation. And a nation has borders, a nation has customs and tradition. A nation has most importantly its citizens. It's our greatest resource. And you have in Silicon Valley what I call kind of the Medicis or the Borgias, this kind of network. They want to get back to kind of the city states, Florence and Venice of Renaissance Italy. I refer to this as techno-feudalism, and I know that it's one of the things that you've been driving. Explain to people when you say this is a feudalistic system, or you want certain parts of this to be like feudal sociopathic overlords. What do we mean by that, ma'am?
Well, you have to understand the philosophy that all of these tech bros and the technocratic tyrants and the billionaires who come from this very oppressive society in Silicon Valley subscribe to in order to understand what their long-term goals are for infiltrating the White House. And so it really all begins with the fact that they subscribe to a neo-reactionary political movement, otherwise known as Dark Enlightenment. And essentially what that means is that they want society to operate like a corporation. They believe that the most high IQ people, the tech elites, the wealthiest people in our country should be the people who are leading our society. And so what they really want is they want a country that operates like a corporation with a CEO monarch. And so you have people who have unlimited resources, billionaires in Silicon Valley, who are controlling the flow of information, who subscribe to a philosophy that is really trying to advocate for the elimination of democracy, the elimination of a constitutional republic, and the implementation of monarchy in America. And Peter Thiel subscribes to this, and I really do believe that people like Elon Musk subscribe to this ideology. J.D. Vance, who is now the incoming vice president, has also subscribed to this ideology, and you can see that he's actually spoken out about how he supports Dark Enlightenment. And what we need to have a conversation about is what is it going to mean for the future of our country, our national security, and the incoming Trump administration if we have a bunch of technocrats who are also essentially welfare queens because their companies are receiving government subsidies and they want to take over our defense industry? If you have a bunch of tech bros with billions of dollars and direct unfettered access to the vice president and the president of the United States, and then they are also very cordial with our adversaries, as in China and Iran. We see that Elon Musk is having these meetings off the books with Iranian officials, with Chinese officials. What does that mean for us and the future of our constitutional republic?
Okay, hang on. Yeah, okay, hang over a second. Hang over a second. I want to go back because I missed.
And keep in mind, this motherfucker, Bannon, when she was, a part of Trump's first little regime, right, to help him get elected, he does subscribe to the dark Enlightenment shit. So just keep that in mind. She dropped some bombs right here. I mean, honestly, she dropped some bombs. She dropped knowledge, but at the same time, she still has the fucking Trump hats in the background. So it's like, all of this is going on. He's being puppeted by these people. He was puppeted by, the shadow government cabal during his first time. And if you think about, and this is the crazy shit, think about it. He was 45 and 47, right? What is 4 plus 5? 9, right? What is 4 plus 7? 11. 9, 11.
JD on Dark Enlightenment. First off, explain to us again, because we love nomenclature and putting out, because ideas have consequences. When you say this construct,
He just told her, he said, ideas have consequences. It sounds like a threat.
Dark Enlightenment, what is it? What does it mean? Where did it come from? Put some meat on the bone.
Well, as I said before, it's this idea that society should operate as a corporation and the elite should be in charge. And so one of the brain children behind this philosophy is a guy by the name of Curtis Yarvin. And I don't know how much time I have really to explain all of this, but Curtis Yarvin, of course, receives his funding from Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel was a big backer of J.D. Vance's Senate campaign, and he claimed to have been a big supporter of President Trump. Yet several months before the election, when he was speaking in the UK and he was asked point blank whether or not he was going to be supporting the incoming Trump administration and if he was going to be voting for President Trump and J.D. Vance, he really just had this kind of stutter attack, as he often does, where he profusely stuttered on stage and really just seemed incapable of answering a very simple question: will you be voting for President Trump and J.D. Vance? So it's very concerning, because these guys, what they want to do is they want to basically incite a civil war in our country. I believe that they want this idea of tech feudalism to create so much conflict with the nationalist MAGA base, so that it kind of sparks a civil war, which is what it's being called now, right? A MAGA civil war. And they want to flame these nationalist the tensions that are created by this shift in the nationalist movement of our party.
This is not a civil war because they're not tough enough. They're just not. They folded. I mean, it was embarrassing.
Come on, man. And this is just pure fucking arrogance and just egotistical, asshat talk right here. It's not a civil war because they're just not tough enough. Well, not all of them are fucking pussies and cut their cocks off, right? And that's just the truth. Not all of them think that men can have babies. Like, matter of fact, they've been beating the brakes off of all of us for quite a few years now and have damn near upended our entire political system in our government. So, and you can already see kind of like telltale signs, and I know many people have probably heard this before, like people predicting civil wars, this second civil war, and we know, like I said, with the predictive programming and the 1900, the last president, right, by Ingersoll Lockwood, who wrote Baron Trump's marvelous underground journey and all of that, right? Um, it's between it is a civil war between the anarchist and the socialist, right? And you think about it, you have this extreme left ideology of socialist Marxism, communism, right? Hardcore shit like that. And then on the right, you have this extremism of anarcho-capitalism, neo-reactionary, dark enlightenment. So it's like either one, but both of them are dead set on destroying, the constitutional republic, and both of them also dress it up as trying to save this country.
Oh, we're going to fight to the death. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to see war that you've never seen before. And then the next tweet, well, we know it needs to be reformed, but we're just talking about 0.0. No, you don't. Let me go back to Curtis Yarvin. He's a quite brilliant guy. Walk me through. We got about a minute here.
He's a quite brilliant guy. See, he follows the dark enlightenment theory. This is his ideology.
Then I'm going to hold you through Raheem Ghassan's. Tell me about Yarvin.
Well, we can have a much greater conversation at this at a later time. I really want to focus, though, on the tech tyrants, and I want to talk about how Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and how a lot of these Silicon Valley billionaires.
Lar, I know what you want to focus on. I asked you about Curtis Yarvin. Can you just answer the question, ma'am?
Well, as I said before, he's one of the brain children behind dark enlightenment theory.
Laura Loomer, why are the strong, the people that are worth hundreds of billions of dollars, and Elon's pretty upfront. He wants to be the first trillionaire, that he spends his time as Allison Wynn,
and if you heard his language just there too, he had a Freudian slip. He says, "Why are the strong?" And then he cuts it off. Like, I'm just telling you, they see us as just like within these secret societies and all of that. Not only are you, the uninitiated, the profane, the useless eaters. That's what you are to them, right? And their ideologies when it comes to their spiritual beliefs and concepts. Now you see the governmental and political beliefs and concepts follow the same MO, right? Where they are these benevolent monarchs and rulers over society and civilization, and they're wanting to do away with government, but only so their giant corporations and tech companies can run every fucking thing. And it's criminal for you to even have a say in politics. We read that right from the book, right from the book. And just like we see with the other ideologies, and you can see where it's all been going, right? With the problem, reaction, solution, the predictive programming to implode the old system. Why? To bring in a one world system. And does this not fit the bill of a new world order? Don't tell me it doesn't, because it does. One world, one ruler, one religion. You get me? Right? Universalism, religion, right? Where we get this weird fucking version of Christianity that's, not Christianity at all. And the universalism concept actually plays into Luciferianism, is what it truly plays into. And that be the religion, which could very easily go hand in hand with, the futurist and transhumanist and all of it. That universalist, everybody's accepted into that. It's just a universalist. And then, this neo-reactionary technocracy through dark enlightenment. And think about it too, even people like the modern day father of Freemasonry, Albert Pike, right? When he was talking about the 3 world wars in his 1871 letter to Mazzini, the 3 world wars, the final world war, World War III, was a social cataclysm. Think about this now, right? Between the Muslim Arabic world and the the Zionist political state of Israel. We see that happening now, right? Palestine, Iran, all of it, right? Between Christians, right? Christian fundamentalists, Christianity, yeah, and the nihilist and the atheist, right? And that the world being at the point of spiritual, physical, economic, and moral exhaustion, right? Over these things. That's where they stretch them to, this social cataclysm, right? And Christianity, after seeing the complete origin of savagery, right? Showing you how savage and fucking, ape like the nihilist and atheist are, right? Showing you the bloody turmoil, origin of savagery, and all of that, the fighting to complete physical, mental, moral exhaustion, right? Christianity with no deistic spirit, because it's a collective consciousness, or universalist, no deistic spirit, so there's no deity of Jesus, will be indoctrinated into the true doctrine, the pure doctrine of Lucifer. Dark enlightenment. I'm telling you, man, we are we are going into a wild time.
Spend personal time with him, focus on getting humanity, saving humanity by getting it to Mars, a colony on Mars. Somebody that deals at that level with it. Why is he afraid of Laura Loomer, ma'am?
Well, I think that a lot of people have a hard time speaking truth to power, and a lot of people are afraid of taking on billionaires. And well, he is the richest man in the world. And so he kind of orbits President Trump. As I called him the other day, I said he's a stage 5 clinger. And the reality is that a lot of President Trump's advisors, and people can deny this all they want, and a lot of people are not going to say this because they're dependent on their Twitter monetization checks, which is why Elon Musk has, I've been demonetized now. I've had my check mark taken away. They realize that, well, their input to President Trump is now being overshadowed by the richest man in the world, who has these ulterior motives. So, as I said before, does he really support MAGA and the America First agenda, or is he trying to push this neo-reactionary political movement so that we can establish a monarchy and have multipolarity? So I think that he doesn't like the fact that somebody who has direct access to President Trump, as I do, and that's very well known, challenged him in a very public manner, and it's dominated the news cycle over these last few days. And so I don't think that it's acceptable for George Soros, Elon Musk, or Peter Thiel. It doesn't matter what side of the political aisle a billionaire is on. I don't think that it's acceptable for billionaires to have this much power and this much access, so that not only are they going to have government access to our money and government influence, as we saw over the spending bill, by threatening primaries against people who don't comply with his wishes. But this is a guy who gets government subsidies for defense contracts, and now wants to silence people who challenged him online. And I'm not the only account that was shut down. And they said, well, you were shut down because you doxed someone. Okay, well, it was an honest mistake if they want to say that I doxed somebody. And I have since issued an apology for not having all of the information blurred out for Serum Kershan's finance record at the SEC that shows that he donated to Democrats a month before the presidential election. And I think that we should be able to criticize the tech elite, the tech bros. They're very triggered by the term tech bros, who are going to now have enormous amounts of power in the Trump administration, especially given the fact that these people are Johnny-come-latelys, okay? They all supported Ron DeSantis. First of all, they all supported Democrats. Then they supported Ron DeSantis. Then they supported Vivek Ramaswamy. And they only decided to support President Trump out of an act of sympathy when we almost watched President Trump's head explode with the bullet of an assassin on live TV in Butler, Pennsylvania. So,
yeah, wow. Damn, son. Damn. And I feel, I can definitely feel for her. I've been demonetized everywhere myself. It does suck. It hurts when it happens, but I mean, you got to understand they're going to come after you, like you when you say what you say, they're going to come after you. And it's like, you start putting people's names and shit you better make sure, the people you're attacking, you know. So we're going to kind of move this in a little bit of a different direction, I think. We got one more video here I want to share with you guys. And this is Curtis Yarvin's Dark Philosophy. We're not going to watch the whole thing. We're just going to get a few minutes out of this, just kind of see what Mr. Curtis Yarvin is all about from his own mouth.
Yarvin had been writing online about political theory and relative obscurity. Democracy is
bad, or even populism is bad. They're like, of course, these are harmful things. People that I know that are involved in the transition. What I know is that Americans of all stripes, Democrats, Republicans, and everyone, except for right-wing Republicans, basically revere FDR. And FDR ran the New Deal like a startup.
So, as I understand it, the point you're trying to make is that we have had something like a dictator in the past in American history, and therefore it's not something to be afraid of now. Is that right?
What we see in the sort of the course of, to kind of
the dawn of man, when cereals were first cultivated.
I'm doing a Putin, the top down.
So why is democracy so bad?
So it's not even that democracy is bad, it's just that it's very weak. And the fact that it's very weak is basically easily seen by the fact that very unpopular policies like mass immigration persist despite strong majorities being against them. So the question of basically, is democracy good or bad, is, I think, a secondary question to, is it what we actually have? When you say to a New York Times reader, democracy is bad, they're a little bit shocked. But when you say to them, politics is bad, or even populism is bad, they're like, of course, these are horrible things. And so the thing is, when you basically want to be anti, say democracy is not a good system of government, just bridge that immediately to saying populism is not a good system of government. And then you'll be like, yes, of course, like actually, policy and, and law should be set by wise experts and people in the courts and lawyers and professors and so forth. Then you'll realize that what you're actually endorsing is aristocracy rather than democracy.
Your ideas are ones that have been pointed to by people in real positions of power in the Republican Party. I think it's probably overstated the extent to which you and J.D. Vance are friends, but he has
definitely overstated.
He has mentioned you by name publicly and referred to sort of de-wokeification ideas that sort of are very similar to yours. You've been on Michael Anton's podcast, and Michael Anton has been sort of tapped by Trump to be high up in the State Department, talking with him about how to install an American Caesar. Peter Thiel, a major Republican donor, has said, you're an interesting thinker. And so let's say people in actual positions of power said to you, Curtis, we're going to do the Curtis Yarvin thing. What are the steps that they would take to change American democracy into something like a monarchy?
My honest answer would have to be, it's not exactly time for that yet. Because what I see happening in DC right now, nobody should be watching this panicking, thinking I'm about to be installed as America's secret dictator. And I don't think I'm even going to the inauguration.
Were you invited?
No. Why? Like, I'm an outsider, man. Like, I'm an intellectual, and the actual ways in which my ideas get into circulation is actually mostly through the staffers and the kind of younger people who basically kind of swim in this very online kind of soup. And I think that's fine. I think that what's happening now in DC, to sort of distinguish my much more radical ideas from what's happening now, I would say that what's happening now is there's definitely an attempt to revive the White House as an executive organization, which sort of governs the executive branch. And The difficulty with that is if you go to Washington and say to anyone who's professionally involved in the business of Washington that Washington would work just fine or even better if there was no White House at all. And they'll basically be like, yeah, of course. The executive branch works for Congress. So you have these poor voters out there who elected, as they think, a revolution. They elected Donald Trump, and maybe the world's most capable CEO is
Right.
in
And your
there.
point is he can't, the way the system's set up, he can't actually get
He
that much
can't
done.
actually do that much to it. And he can block things, he can disrupt it, he can create chaos and turbulence or whatever, but he can't really change what it is.
Do you think you're maybe overstating the inefficacy of a president? You could point to, the repeal of Roe is something that's directly attributable to Donald Trump being president.
Yes,
You could
it
point
is.
one could argue that the COVID response was
Yes,
attributable to Donald Trump being president.
I think the COVID response is a slightly better example. Certainly, many things about COVID were different because Donald Trump was president. Here, I'll tell you a funny story.
Sure.
2016, my son
Who's
and
how
daughter, he's now 14. He was 6 then, and
So, talking about installing an American Caesar, if there's ever been anybody that would be America's CEO or America's Caesar, like I honestly, I couldn't see anyone doing it better or being like the more logical candidate than Donald Trump. And when you see the whole team of people he has around him, all of these libertarians, just all of it, it's like, you can see like there is probably a little bit of validity to this, whether or not, and even he said himself, Curtis Yarvin said himself that he doesn't believe it's time for this, right? Which what that means, right? How much time, how much longer before it is time for this, right? He didn't specify. The first 2 months, where's it at here? We're going to get into some of the news. See, 2 perfect months. That's how Trump sees his opening act. Believe him or your own lying eyes. So the first 2 months, he's done a lot, a fuck ton, right? And he shifted things in a way I don't even know if anybody was expecting or thinking the guy was capable of doing, especially so fast. So when will it be time for this, right? When will it be time to implement this system and bring out America's Caesar, right? And he said he believes Trump is trying to, revitalize the executive branch and bring power back to the executive branch, and we are seeing that. Matter of fact, there's a new executive order with the Smithsonian targeting programs with improper ideology. So let's go ahead and look at some of the headlines here. 2 perfect months. It's how Trump sees his opening act. Oh, dark, dark, dark. They all go into the dark. It's been a big, beautiful opener for MAGA 2.0. And in all fairness, let's start with real, substantive achievement. The southern border is more secure than it has been in decades. Biden helped with a lot of belated executive orders, but reinstating remain in Mexico and ending largely fraudulent asylum claims have been even more effective. In February 2024, Border Patrol picked up some 140,641 migrants between local ports of entry. This February, it was, 8,347. Huge success and proof that the previous administration actively chose to keep the border open. Interesting. But the rest is chaos, malice, revenge, and failure, tinged with high levels of indecency never before seen from the Oval Office. Start with immigration itself. If the administration had wanted to, they could have hailed the quiet border and focused on deporting illegal immigrants by usual means, but nah. Trump decided he wants to go after legal immigrants and even legal permanent residents who've been charged with no crimes or immigration violations because they have criticized a foreign country, Israel. He's deploying a McCarthy 1952 law to target any legal non citizen who's criticized or demonstrated against the Jewish state's wiping of Gaza off the face of the earth, proudly gutting the First Amendment for no good reason. Wait, there's more. Trump has also abandoned habeas corpus and due process by which he tried to do that in the first one, right? You guys remember when he's trying to take away habeas corpus in the first regime that he had his first one. So in due process by invoking the 1798 Alien Enemies Act to seize mere suspects off the streets and transport them instantly to a terrifying foreign jail in El Salvador. And I hate to tell you, I'm sorry, habeas corpus is for United States citizens, motherfucker. It's not for illegal aliens. Just saying. So, they can say he fucked up habeas corpus. No, he didn't. Sorry, he did try during the COVID shit. I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing? You can't take away habeas corpus. Like fucking wild shit. But he doesn't owe any of these illegal alien shit. They're not citizens. They broke into our country illegally. They have no rights, no nothing. Like, so sorry. Not sorry. The law has only been used twice before in wartime, and we're not at war. But it's against a fucking aliens, illegal aliens, anyone with brown skin and the wrong kind of tattoo. And now they're going to turn it to a racial thing, is therefore now at risk of being carted off to torture by the U.S. government. That's not fucking true. If you have brown skin and you're a fucking United States citizen, it don't apply. This is called propaganda, children. With absolutely no safeguards that they have gotten the right people, or do you think in an administration that confuses billions with millions and puts classified intelligence on Signal app is incapable of making an error? Okay. The utter indecency. These wannabe fascists publicly delight and revel in their acts of domination in a manner that even despotic regimes avoid. For the Department of Homeland Security, Secretary Kristi Noem, the posture in front of a third world gulag with a 50,000 Rolex on her wrist in order to scare away any brown person with a tattoo in the U.S. Okay, I'm sorry, guys, I can't read no more of this article. It's trash. This is trash. So, I'm sorry, her Rolex costs too much money. She's balling. She's not supposed to wear a fucking watch because it's nice. Come on, man. Texas reaches 400 measles cases, and I can't stand this shit, guys. I'm serious. The whole race baiting bullshit. I am just over it. I'm over it about as much as I am the gender shit. Maybe more so because it's been going on longer than the gender nonsense. It's like, I don't give a fuck what color you are. Shut up. I don't want to hear white male, brown people. I don't want to hear none of it. None of their fucking little trigger words, keywords, and their neuro linguistic programming ever again. I don't give a fat fuck. Like, honestly, people can leave bad reviews on my Facebook or whatever. I care less, right? Call me a racist. I don't give a shit, right? It's nonsense. It's not racist to deport illegal fucking aliens from your country. It ain't because they have brown skin. It could happen to any person that comes in illegally, especially if they've committed crimes, no matter what their skin is. It's not, built on their skin color. It's built on they're not fucking citizens. They came here illegally. Jesus. Texas reaches 400 measles cases as U.S. deals with outbreak in 5 states. And I just want to state, I am not a medical doctor. This is not political, legal, financial, medical advice whatsoever. This is for entertainment purposes only, right? This is my opinion, not fact, and I am not the news. Already, the U.S. has more measles cases this year in all of 2024. The U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention said other states with outbreaks defined as 3 or more cases. That's an outbreak, 3 or more. That's New Mexico, Kansas, Ohio, and Oklahoma. February, 2 unvaccinated people have died from measles-related cases. The new outbreaks confirm health experts' fears that the virus will take hold in other U.S. communities with low vaccination rates. Oh my gosh, and that spread could, okay. Measles is caused by a highly contagious virus that's airborne, spreads easily when an infected person breathes, sneezes, or coughs. It's preventable through vaccines and has been considered eliminated from the U.S. since 2000. But this is going to be what they fucking push as far as the narrative goes. And you can already see that. So, got it. Trump executive order on Smithsonian targets funding for programs with improper ideology. I've been dying to check this out here. President Trump on Thursday revealed his intention to force changes at the Smithsonian Institute with an executive order that targets funding for programs that advance divisive narratives and improper ideology. The latest steps in a broadside against culture he deems too liberal. Trump claimed that this has been a concerted and widespread effort over the past decade to rewrite American history by replacing objective facts with a distorted narrative driven by ideology rather than truth, adding that it casts the founding principles of the United States in a negative light. The order he signed behind closed doors puts Vice President J.D. Vance, who serves on the Smithsonian Institute's Board of Regents, in charge of overseeing efforts to remove improper ideology from all areas of the institution, including its museums, education and research centers, and the National Zoo. Isn't it funny how these motherfuckers, they wanted to slam us, shadow ban, deplatform, demonetize for medical misinformation, harmful conspiracies, right? Disinformation, misinformation, right? All of it. They wanted to fuck our worlds up over that. They wanted to shut up and remove from the public platform and from the internet completely, destroying our livelihoods and all of it, right? Right? But now, when they are literally attacking our founding fathers, and I've seen that Trump's going to actually start putting the statues back in America too, right? Which is huge. One of the last things before a country falls, right, and collapses is the statues are taken down, right? That's why you're seeing, like, in Operation Iraqi Freedom, Saddam Hussein, like, they were pulling all the statues of Saddam down. It is like that's the final step before collapse, And these motherfuckers have done exactly what he's saying they're doing, right? They have used perverse, weird, deranged ideologies to twist the narrative of history to create their new thought, new speak weirdness, right? And it's not true, it's nonsense, and it's all race baiting, fucking racially charged, transgender and all this weird shit. And it's like, come the fuck on. We're sick of it already. Just let us have our history back the way they taught it to us. Like, we don't want your weird version of history that ain't like you just made up in your fucking heads. Yeah, so we'll leave that one there. Who cares, right? Who cares? These departments investigating Elon Musk have been cut by Doge and the Trump administration. Musk owns the country's most successful electric car maker in Tesla. His SpaceX rocket company is one of NASA's biggest contractors, relied upon to service the International Space Station. His social media platform, X, formerly known as Twitter, dominates public discourse. And now, after spending more than $200 million to elect Donald Trump to a second term as president, the wealthiest man on earth has ensconced himself in the White House at the president's side. He is serving as a policy advisor while his Department of Government Efficiency popularly known as Doge, scours the federal bureaucracy for $1 trillion in savings. But Musk's growing involvement in the federal government's business has raised questions about potential conflicts with his own companies, including SpaceX, which has billions of dollars in federal contracts. See, here we go. So now they're going to say, like, that his companies and all this shit are what's actually dragging us down, not U.S. aid and the laundering of money, right? Doge has laid off thousands of federal employees while President Trump fired or replaced Biden era officials, including more than a dozen inspector generals, multiple agencies or departments, from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, have been regulating and investigating Musk companies. Quote, I think the overall goals of Donald Trump and Musk are to slash regulations, to slash budgets, and to cut positions, all with this claim they're going to increase efficiency and fight fraud. The group calculated the administration halted or moved to dismiss investigations against 89 corporations, including Musk companies across multiple federal agencies. I'd say it's a smokescreen and a cover for personal profit and corporate power. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So this is a smokescreen taking down U.S. aid and all these fucking people, right? Go figure. You know, they picked a really shit smokescreen. I just want to say, like, he should have picked a way better smokescreen than this. That's stupid. This is a dumbass smokescreen, if you ain't noticed. You know, it really is. He can do much better. Much better. President Trump is the GOAT, but there is one thing Trump has not done. Thousands of my fans are asking, where are the arrests? Yeah, we're all asking that. President Trump, the greatest of all time. His first 2 months have been a work of art. Fans love him, but one thing is missing. One thing that matters above all else. "99% of politicians never read a single letter. Da da da. American people are smart." What is he doing? Kiss an ass here. I don't get it. We're gonna get to the shit here. They all love and appreciate Trump. They believe he's the greatest president of our lifetime, maybe ever. They believe he is the only politician of their lifetimes on their side. And they trust he really does want to make America great again. They all agree the deck is stacked. It's Trump against the deep state, DC swamp, political establishment, our own government, and pretty much the whole world. My viewers and listeners love 99% of what Trump has done in his first 2 months as president. Call it Trump 2.0, but there is one thing Trump has not done yet that everyone wants to see happen. The one thing that they all believe needs to happen, the one thing that will make America great again. The one thing I hear from almost everyone is, where are the arrests? Here is what an average, everyday Americans know. They know the resistance judges are desperate to block Trump's agenda and are dirty. They are on the payroll of either the deep state or our foreign enemies. Where are investigations? Where are the arrests? They know the Democrat politicians and rhinos blocking Trump's agenda are on the deep state payroll. Where are the arrests? Attorney General Pam Bondi just said Sunday morning shows that she will defund cities and states that block the mass deportation. But that's not enough. Where are the arrests of the politicians and government officials who are breaking the fucking law, protecting criminals, and blocking the deportation? Alejandro Mayorkas was the guy who carried out the international destruction of America through the open border. So why isn't he under arrest? They believe George Soros is a key figure behind all of this. They believe he is the guy funding the resistance. We've seen it with fucking USA, that sack of shit. They believe he is funding this coup against Trump. They believe he was funding the open border. Soros's Open Society Foundation offices were just raided in India. Why aren't we raiding his offices in America? Where are the arrests? They believe all roads lead to Obama. The American people know Biden's presidency was really Obama's third term. Obama was giving the orders. Obama ordered the weaponization of government and the spying on Trump. These are serious crimes. So where are the arrests? They all love what Elon Musk is doing with Doge. He's uncovered the looting of America. It's great he's exposing all this theft. It's great he's clawing back the money. But where are the rest of all these corrupt government bureaucrats who stole the fucking money? We know the Biden crime family and the Clinton crime family extorted and stole perhaps hundreds of millions of dollars. But where are the arrests? We know the government censored and silenced conservatives and me in conjunction with the media, social media, and even Stanford University. Mark Zuckerberg confessed in writing. So where the fuck are the arrests? They know Dr. Fauci lied about everything involving COVID research and origins. They know he covered up deaths from the vaccine, and millions are dead, injured because of his lies and greed. Fauci committed crimes against humanity. Where are the motherfucking arrests? They know U.S. aid was a CIA slush fund used to fund corruption, crime, media propaganda, and Democrat Party scams. So where are those arrests? They know Ukraine war was one big money laundering operation. Arrest? They know Kamala's all-time record $1.3 billion campaign war chest was a scam. Most of that money came from illegal foreign donations. So where are the arrests? They know that climate change organization tied to Stacey Abrams with $100 billion in revenues was given $2 billion by the Biden administration. The money has been clawed back. But where are the arrests? I could go on for hours and hours. They may not be Harvard educated, but they weren't born yesterday. We all see the fraud, the extortion, the looting, the bribery, the treason, the persecution, and intentional destruction of America. So the question is, where are the motherfucking arrests? Because we all believe that no matter how great Trump is, and no matter how hard he tries, without mass arrest of the bad guys, without severe punishment, without justice, the corruption will never end. And we will never make America great again. So arrest these motherfuckers. Moral of the story. Sorry, it was just too much fun. Let's go. Yeah, next. Uh-oh. And here's another executive order, the in-depth look at Trump's election integrity executive order, massive potential impact. Trump took a crucial step fulfilling the promise to initiate reform of the elections and signing the executive order preserving and protecting the integrity of American elections. Election fraud, you heard the term. Trump asked as he began signing the order. It will end, hopefully. This will go a long way towards ending it. There are other steps that we will be taking in the coming weeks, and we think we'll be able to end up getting fair elections. Trump acknowledged that some people think he shouldn't be complaining because he won in a landslide. That doesn't seem to faze him as he demonstrates a clear understanding through the order of what's at stake and what needs to be done. Yeah, fuck yeah. You know, might as well, right? And I'm sure people, they twist all of this shit, dude, one way or another, whether, they're good or bad moves, it's all bad to them. Tim Walz calls for shadow government to counter Trump's election integrity efforts with alternative press conference. Think about that. Oh, man. Tim Walz has called for the establishment of a shadow government to counteract what he perceives as the Trump administration's efforts to counter President Trump's common sense efforts to secure America's election. Speaking at town hall, Walz laid bare the Democrats' latest scheme to subvert the will of the American people, proposing alternate press conference to peddle what he calls the truth in opposition to the Trump administration. Oh man, this wonderful battle we get to witness. You know, State Department notifies Congress it will officially shut down U.S. aid. This is my slow clap right here. The State Department announced Friday it would officially dismantle the bloated U.S. Agency for International Development. And like, I love how people talk about, like, oh, they're helping people, they're doing this. I'm sorry, it's just an fucking, it's an acronym. Look, it's bloated U.S. Agency for International Development. These motherfuckers ain't helping nobody. Folding select operations into its own ranks by July 1st. The long overdue decision puts an end to the multi-billion-dollar bureaucratic behemoth that squandered taxpayer dollars on questionable overseas handouts for decades. Trump administration fulfilling promises to drain the swamp and slash government overreach accused U.S. aid of gross mismanagement and funding foreign programs that do little to advance American interests. I believe they set them back, but foreign assistance done right can advance our national interests, protect our borders, and strengthen our partnerships with key allies. Unfortunately, U.S. aid strayed from its original mission long ago. As a result, these gains were too few and costs were too high. Thanks to Trump, this misguided and fiscally irresponsible era is now over. So get them out of here. Get them out of here. They ain't shit anyways. They've been backstabbing the hell out of all of us, stealing our money, backstabbing our fucking country. And this has been another big thing into the news. Another Tesla was keyed in Seattle. People are stupid. There's like fucking 7 cameras on.
By glances over at the car, and moments later, they return and quickly start keying the passenger door with a phone in the other hand.
You can tell in the video too, like they're actively starting to record and they're recording the whole thing. You can easily tell this is a targeted, like there's intent there.
And they, goofballs.
Kind of a mockery of it, right?
Dumb bitch.
With all the recording.
Seconds later, the vandal runs off. The owners, who asked to remain anonymous, notice the damage about a half hour later and say since then they have felt unsettled and somewhat fearful.
Ooh. Stupid motherfuckers. They have like 10 cameras on those cars. Have you guys seen people taking the let me see if I can pull it up. Have you seen them taking the Teslas? Oh shit. The trans Tesla Civics. Oh fuck. They're taking the Teslas and they're like making them look like fucking switched his Honda Civic or Tesla models to Honda Civics. Okay, here we go. Let's see if it pops up here. If I gotta sign in, I don't know about that. Hold up, y'all.
A lot of people are doing this. This guy disguised his Tesla as a Civic. The thing is, they can't actually touch it now. Like, for real, they can't. Even though you can tell by the lights, they can't actually touch
it identifies as trans.
Because if they do, they don't accept trans. And they're transphobic bigots for assuming its make and model.
You're fucking bigots for assuming it's make and model. It's a Tesla that identifies as a Civic. Ooh, that is so funny. Talking about throwing their shit right back in their face. Oh, that's fucking gold. That is gold. Speaking of gold, hold on. That's hilarious. God, that's hilarious. Here we go. Underground golden chamber filled with ultra pure water that detects invisible particles. Japan, Antarctica, and where else? Deep beneath a mountain in Japan, Super Kamiokande is a giant neutrino observatory containing 50,000 tons of ultra pure water. 50,000 tons of water is about 12 million gallons to you and me. Look at that. That's fucking crazy looking. The underground golden chamber is lined with 11,000 photomultiplier tubes capturing flashes of light from neutrinos, mysterious particles that pass through everything, including us, by the trillions every second. Look at that, dude. That is wild looking. This facility helped prove that neutrinos have mass, a discovery that earned a Nobel Prize. Look at that. Wow. Look at the dudes on the fucking boat right here. Look how small it is in that place. Wow, dude. Crazy. Today, it continues to study cosmic events from supernova explosions to the secrets of the universe. And here's a depiction right here of the building. Wow. Excuse me, waiter. There appears to be a raft with some humans in my ultra pure water. Look at that. That's really crazy. Don't pee in this highly precious swimming pool. That'd be the first thing I did.
I think it's appropriate to begin this video with a thank you to all the staff and researchers at the Kamioka Observatory. Not only were they kind enough to allow me to use some of their footage, but as we'll see, they've achieved incredible things over the past few decades and truly deserve recognition.
Cascade failure.
A couple of videos back, I briefly mentioned the cascade failure at the Super Kamiokande facility in Japan, and then I didn't elaborate further. Unsurprisingly, I got a lot of requests for a follow-up video. Now, this isn't a topic that needs one of my typical hour-long videos with flashy graphics and tailored visualizations. So, while I recover from the marathon that was my previous video, I thought it'd be nice to do a shorter and simpler video on this incident. Consider it available in the West were about 20 centimeters in diameter.
Get a look at some of this
Those
shit.
in the Super Kamiokande are a whopping 50 centimeters. Also, note the little boat used during maintenance. There's something beautifully Japanese about that. Now, these tubes are rated to 8 atmospheres of external pressure. With a max possible water depth of 36 meters in the facility, that gives a safety margin of more than 2 for hydrostatic pressure. Hydrostatic. Static.
Hydrostatic.
96, and contained 11,146 of these photomultiplier tubes, each with a cost of $10,000. Now, that's not cheap in real terms, but I can't help but feel $10,000 is a bit of a bargain for a custom blown 50 cent.
All right. There's another one that was built in Antarctica after Japan proved the mass theory. It's called Ice Cube. Wow. So there's this called Ice Cube. There's so much weird shit in Antarctica. I'm not even surprised on that one. Just a reminder, CBDCs are arriving in full power mode. Preparation phase to end in October 2025. This is a digital euro launch. Just around €1 per capita. Not so much money to enslave 448 million inhabitants. Argentine President Javier Milei orders the release of all remaining documents on Nazis who fled the country after World War II, including information on Hitler in Argentina after 1945. Well, that is fucking crazy, right? That is fucking crazy. I don't know if I can get this article pull up. It says, I really love that the new wave of technocrats see releasing all this shit as a healthy distraction as they plunder the globe. And, well, I mean, honestly, What? I don't know what that is. I don't know what. Does anybody know what a Mooney is? Oh, those are that was one of their. You might not be aware, but the unification. We just talked about this. Unification Church has leveraged its Japanese influence to control something like 80% of the sushi market in the U.S. via a company called True World Foods. Congress had a crowning ceremony for the guy who created the cult, where he crowned himself King of America. No fucking joke. Americans might not be aware they are a powerful force in GOP and probably around all politics. That's wild. He crowned himself King of America. 110 megaliths discovered in Kerala and inscriptions revealing ancient pilgrimage center in Andhra Pradesh. Archaeology Survey of India unearthed a significant number of megalithic structures near Malampuza and Palakkad, Kerala. Excavation revealed 110 megaliths spread over 55 hectares of land. Interesting. Yeah, well, this is happening. People of Nuuk protest against U.S. attempts to take over Greenland. Yeah, you might as well get used to it, motherfuckers. We done decided it's ours. It's ours. Yeah, it's over. It's over with, man. Ooh, that's crazy. The body of a two-headed dolphin washed ashore in Turkey. Fucking weird. Speaking of cults, I've got a cool little document here. I think this is where I'm gonna hop next. Satanic cult awareness. I probably should have done a whole video on satanic cults, but I wanted to just bring this out because of all the shit we've been kind of talking about, the dark enlightenment and just, secret societies, just all of it, So let's just get a look at this. This is a training manual, the results of compiling information from several years of occult investigations, including from volumes of written documentations from several investigations across the nation. We take this opportunity, blah, blah, blah. Excuse me. Huh. Here we go. So, fortunately, imperative these cases be solved. They're vicious, revolting, and create fear in communities. Men are apprehensive for the safety of their wives, mothers, daughters, women for their children and themselves. There are hundreds more. Okay. These situations make for sensational newspaper headlines, as the infamous case of Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Elwood Toole, who claimed to have slain approximately 360 people during their travels around the country between 1975 and 83. Henry Lucas stated in April 22nd, 84, Fort Worth, Texas Star Telegram news article, there are hundreds more like him on the road, all members of the cult that worships death and devil. I belong to a cult, Lucas stated. It was a devil's organization. For initiation, you would have to go out and kill a person. As reports unfolded from the Texas Rangers files, they disclosed some of the most sadistic, brutal, and bizarre accounts of deviant sexual murders in modern history. Abnormal sex offenses involving cult worshippers are not always recognized. The accepted elements of normal sex offenses may not even be remotely present. The basic ingredients may be fire, slashing, beating, stabbing, all of which are listed as other police offenses. It is only through proper training that the police officer can hope to gain the ability to understand and recognize which are regular and those that belong to the cults. All right. Let's get into some of this. Okay, so Exactly how is a destructive religious cult defined? A destructive religious cult is any group which uses psychological manipulation to impair, destroy, or make captive an individual's freedom of thought or reasoning abilities. This is done with a hidden purpose of promoting the wealth, power, or vanity of charismatic cult leaders. The recruitment practice is usually deceptive, and the victim enters the cult without informed consent. Cult leaders demand blind faith in their teachings and restrict the freedom of their followers and direct them to engage in criminal activity. And speaking of cults, there's been a cult, cults running our country literally, from its inception. Let's see what this is here. See if I got this right.
You're about to meet a Woodland Hills, California housewife who discovered she was leading a terrifying double life. A warning, what you're about to see may leave you sickened, stunned, and outraged. But one thing's certain, you'll never forget the story of Bryce Taylor.
My name is Bryce Taylor, and I'm a 48-year-old native Californian. Uniform, core self.
And this is a mind-controlled sex slave, which we'll get to that if we got time. Hold on. I want to flip the cult thing. Which, CIA are, they're all part of cults too. It's the same shit. It's ritual abuse.
This video is sponsored by Leaving the Public to Wonder, Floor to the Freemasons. These shadowy organizations have shaped history from behind the curtain, influencing governments, banking systems, and even revolutions. Their members are bound by oaths of secrecy, their motives often unclear, leaving the public to wonder, are they merely social clubs for the elite, or do they wield real power? One such society has stood the test of time, remaining one of the most exclusive and powerful organizations in America. Its members have gone on to become U.S. presidents, Supreme Court justices, intelligence operatives, and corporate titans. Its rituals, a closely guarded secret, rumored to involve coffins, stolen skulls, and strange oaths of loyalty. For nearly 200 years, Skull and Bones has operated in the shadows at Yale University. But what really happens inside the infamous tomb? And does this fraternity hold more influence than it wants the world to believe?
You're fucking right, they do. Now, number one, isolation. The loss of reality induced by physical separation from society and rational references. Hypnosis. State of high suggestibility induced by hypnosis, often thinly disguised as meditation. Peer group pressure. Suppression of doubt and resistance to new ideas, achieved by exploiting the natural need to belong. And I hate to say it, but, people do this shit not just in cults, they do it outside of cults too, right? People, if they think you're growing or outgrowing them, right, and you're evolving and becoming more, right? They use that tactic right there, the peer pressure one, right? Any new idea or new people in your life, they attack and, make you feel like you're out of touch or, shit like that to keep you from advancing, evolving. Isolation is a tactic done, by targeting all of it, right? It's to keep you separate. That way you're weaker. You have no support system. That's why there's an attack on the nuclear family. Hypnosis, right? This can be done in a multitude of ways, drugs, neuro-linguistic programming, right? Semantics, priming, and basically circumventing, the left brain and being able to, have commands given to the right, which is incredibly suggestible. So, love bombing, sense of family, belonging, contrived through hugging, kissing, touching, and flattery. Removal of privacy, loss of ability to evaluate, logically achieved by preventing private contemplation. Sleep deprivation and fatigue, disorientation and vulnerability created by prolonged mental and physical activity, withholding adequate rest and sleep. Games, need for direction when playing games with obscure rules, increases dependence on the group. Meta communication, subliminal messages implanted by stressing certain key words or phrases in a long, confusing lecture. No questions, automatic acceptance of beliefs, accomplished by discouraging questions. Confusing doctrines, complex lectures on an incomprehensible doctrine encourage rejection of logic and blind acceptance. Rejection of old values, acceptance of new lifestyles accelerated by constantly denouncing former values and beliefs. Confession, destruction of personal egos, increased vulnerability to the new teachings, and recruits' weaknesses revealed through sharing innermost secrets. Guilt, teachings of eternal salvation reinforced by exaggerating sins of the former lifestyle. Fear, loyalty and obedience to a group maintained by threatening soul, life, or limb for the slightest negative thought, word, or deed. Chanting and singing, non-cult input screened out by demanding repetition of mind-narrowing chants or phrases when faced with non-cult ideas. Disinhibition, abdication of adult responsibility encouraged by orchestrating childlike behavior. Change of diet, disorientation, and increased susceptibility to emotional arousal achieved by depriving the nervous system of necessary nutrients through the use of low protein, childlike foods. Controlled approval, vulnerability and confusion maintained by alternately rewarding and punishing similar actions. Dress, individuality removed by demanding conformity to the group dress code. Flaunting hierarchy, acceptance of cult authority produced by promising advancement, power, and salvation. Finger pointing, false sense of righteousness created by pointing to the shortcomings of the outside world and other cults. Replacement of relationships, pre-cult families destroyed by arranging cult marriages and families. Financial commitment, increased dependence on the group achieved by burning bridges to the past through the donation of all assets. And you know what? You know, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. I've been going for a while here. And we'll finish a little bit. We'll do a little bit more before we finish here. I got a little bit more for you guys. We're getting close, but you can see here, I just want to point this out. So all these fucking cults and shit, these cult tactics, these are the same things that you see in political movements, right? Like the right, the left, I don't give a fuck, who it is, right? They're same shit, y'all. Same shit. They have these same type of tactics, And I hate to say it, but a lot of communities online, same type of tactics, right? Like they discourage anyone thinking for themselves and all of that shit. So it's like, and I think all of us, we've been sucked into some weird shit, along the way at one time or another. We're going to move to deceptive recruitment. Most cults recruit members in their teens. Yeah. Or members that are young, impressionable, and troubled. The initial approach, potential recruits are often unaware they're being recruited. They're solicited to attend discussion sessions, non-religious political subjects, weekend seminars. The goal of this technique is to get the recruit alone with other cult members so that psychological manipulation can begin. Not every recruit joins. At each step of the recruitment process, the worldly, sophisticated, streetwise, independent recruits are separated. Only those who are idealistic, submissive, and emotional are asked to join. Yeah, and then we see that happening in society, right? They isolate the people like you, the ones who think for themselves, right? The ones who don't follow nobody or, you know, belong to anything like that. Like they isolate you. They keep you separate, you know. And I tried to create a community where like all the black sheep, you know, could kind of be together and like, you know, support one another and that. And it's like people like us, we we don't do that very well, you know. But it's necessary though, honestly, for us to ever really have a truly powerful voice. It's like we got to have the numbers, we got to have the support, we got to have the drive, we got to have all of that. Like a lot of these other weak ass groups, like, think about it. A group that was truly aware what they could do as opposed to these fucking woke, fucking brainwashed motherfuckers. Like everywhere we look, we have groups that are completely brainwashed to right or left, the two-party system, religious ideologies. Like there's never real deal communities that have broken out of all of it, and decide to come together and support one another and push for something more and push for something better and push back against all the bullshit. You know, those that are like following the light they tend to only come together when it's like fucking too late, or when there's no other choice. It's like sometimes when there's no other choice, it's too late. Um, Not every recruit joins. Interpersonal bonds are then established by other cult members. Conversion takes place not because of the appeal of its ideology, but because of the acceptance of the opinion of one's new friends. Most cults recruit members. We've already seen that. Oh, shit. Indoctrinating them, physical, mental changes appear in this disorientation state. Of the total 27 steps of psychological coercion, only 17 need to be used in a 48-hour period to result in a disoriented person. So, let's see here. Acceptance without judgment, no personal goals, imagination over reality, fact to fantasy, accepting leaders' thoughts, conformity, dysfunctional brain response, confusion, change in physical appearance, emotional depression, no self reflection, change in speech pattern, indoctrination, information distortion, meditation, guided fantasy, subliminal oratory, trance lectures, misdirected thought input, and it's high excitement with low food intake, love bombing, noise, continued monitoring, lack of sleep. Well, I mean, you know what? If we ever decided we wanted to, target people to join our cult, then by God, we've got the outline here. So here's the types of abuse and torture. Confinement, isolation, small places, often with sensory deprivation, black hole, pit, cage, coffin, or grave. Often the container is filled with bones, skull and bones, right? Or a body, animal or human, snakes, spiders, etc. Children are told that worms will eat their brains out. Often they are left for days in absolute filth. This abuse is involved in significant rituals or may be utilized as punishment. Being reborn into Satanism, hauled out of a live burial through symbolic death is a standard ritual for children. Sexual torture is continuous and almost always with multiple perpetrators, both male and female, as well as trained animals. Gross. Infants and toddlers are physically prepared for later sexual abuse with objects forced into every body opening. The role of the mother figure is crucial in this early sexual abuse preparation. Sexual rituals generally involve the letting of blood. Girls are cut vaginally, boys cut on the penis. Sexual orgies among cults members always involve the balance of pleasure with pain to serve Satan. Girls are impregnated as early as possible and are taught that unethatized abortions are an honor. And I've heard too in like some clubs or cults, like if you get pregnant during the rituals, like it like you either sacrifice the baby or it like disqualifies you, some shit like that, just depending on the group. Physical deprivation, uh, chronic disruption of sleep, starvation, excessive exposure to heat or cold. This breaks down resistance, increases susceptibility to brainwashing. Forced participation in abuse or murder. For children, this may be real. Adult hand guides child's hand to stab a baby. Or staged, the victim was already dead, or the child's participation was suggested under hypnosis. The child is then labeled a murderer. Unlovable. A criminal. Criminal who will be locked up by the police, crazy and awaiting psychiatric lockup. Ultimately, many of the children will be programmed to murder from the cult on cue. They are taught by trainers how to kill, collect blood, and skin victims. Jesus. Even high-level trainers still go through continuous torture in order to stay vicious. Psychiatric abuse. Children are often routinely taken to an actional psychotherapist, cult member, or a person posing as one. Psychotherapeutic behaviors are associated with pain and fear, thus effectively sabotaging legitimate therapy for the survivor. In the future, some survivors also report being locked up and restrained in psychiatric hospitals or undergoing ECT as children. Varied emotional abuse, targeted at destroying child's self-esteem, self-confidence, standard carrying societal messages, I love you, you're special, or linked with torture and abandonment. Child's ordered to complete a paradoxical or impossible task, then is tortured for not following orders or is blamed for the torture or murder of another child. Children are told they're worthless, dirty, stupid, evil, and are lucky the cult will keep them. Jesus, man. Religious spiritual abuse, often in real or staged Christian churches, always targeted against any future acceptance of Christianity. Even though many cult families masquerade as active Christians, always emphasizing control of the child by Satan and his demons. Children are reaped with symbolic Christian objects and are told that Jesus approved and believes they are bad. Jesus Christ. Rituals involving the insertion of eyeballs into the vaginas or rectum symbolize that demons are inside the child, always watching. Children are placed under numerous curses during rituals, especially important to uncover is the curse of silence. If they tell of the cult, they are the non-cult listener will die. Although special children are taught they can develop great powers by serving Satan, fear of the deity's rage seems to predominate the belief system. Most of the cult abuse is intertwined with religious dogma. Male and female children and adults are married to Satan, who's considered bisexual at various ages. General physical torture, mutilation, marking of the body for Satan, drawing blood, hanging by arms or feet, tubal insertion in body, opening to allow for fluids to be introduced, electroshock to spine, knees, dragging with rope or leash around the neck, generally being treated like an animal, immersion in feces, blood buckets, urine, pulling, drilling, teeth being burned, trial by fire, blood transfusion, skin grafts from sacrificial victims, drug abuse. Begins in infancy, routinely part of the general brainwashing rituals. Drugs are very sophisticated and often administered by medical professionals, IV, gas mask, orally. Most survivors report that drugs are administered through the cranial burr holes as well. Damn. Effects of drugs are complex, such as results in paralysis from the neck down and are very carefully induced. Some ritual torture not be fully experienced by the child. And simply serves symbolic or spiritual purposes. The cult also uses sodium amytal to gain information, brainwashing, often in conjunction with drugs, sophisticated hypnosis, which involves the associated pairing of induced pain or terror, the cult message or trigger cues. Trigger cues are planted in the subconscious and are too numerous to list. They are later utilized by the cult to control the survivor without his or her conscious awareness. Visual symbols or greeting cards, flower colors and arrangements, common hand gestures, integral part of the ritual abuse and cult indoctrination, also serves protecting cult secrecy. Hypnotic indoctrination of visual images during abuse can hamper later therapeutic efforts, near-death experiences. Damn. I feel like I can't do this motherfucker justice by trying to hammer all this out. You know, within this short period of time. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this one up. I'm starting to get tired. It's starting to get late, anyways. I do want to ask each and every one of you that are watching tonight, please hit that thumbs up for me. Give this a thumbs up, whether you catch this live or on the flip side. Please donate and support. We are completely viewer powered. I have been demonetized everywhere. YouTube, Facebook, all of it, man. So your support is needed and greatly appreciated, right? So you can do that paypal.me, the Best Damn Podcast, Cash App, Best Damn Podcast, Facebook Messenger Pay, facebook.com, John King, Best Damn Podcast, or you can join us, patreon.com, Best Damn Podcast Official. And please follow me, Instagram, Facebook, Best Damn Podcast, Twitter, The Real Best Damn, YouTube, Best Damn Podcast Official, and Best Damn Podcast, and John Keen 33. And I think I gave all the other channels. All the links are in the description box, man. Thank you so much for watching. You can book a personal tarot or astrology reading starting at $35. Text 513-393-2396 or email therealbestdampodcast@gmail.com. Everyone who donates each month, we're starting for next month now. You donate now, you'll have all next month for free. Well, not free, but donate now. Get links to the uncensored content. There's over 200 and something hours, watch hours within. I got about 5-6 playlists just on YouTube alone. So I have so much of the uncensored content that's been, banned, gotten strikes, been removed, taken down on the platform. So, donate, support, and then text that number or email and, get something that nobody else can get. It's only private. So thank you guys so much for watching. Like I said, thumbs up, share the link on your social media, comment, help with the algorithms, and please donate, support. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time. You have an awesome weekend. Peace.